Friends, welcome back to another episode of Mystical Tutors. I'm bringing in a good friend of mine, a confidant, a co-opper, one of the best people in the community that I can ever think to when I need to get into team drafts or shit talk about plays in Commander, because that's literally what we do half the time. Voiddyn, my friend, how you doing today?
I was about to say, you got Jaffer MTG on the podcast?
Man, I get big time by Jaffer all the time. Let's not.
That's okay. I'm doing well, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, of course, buddy. And I got a pretty exciting topic in, because I know you're pretty passionate about this. Hashtag unbanned Hall Breacher. But wheels in Commander.
Yes.
Wheels. So I'm going to open the question to you, because, you know, I may know what they are. I know you know what they are, but maybe the listeners don't know. What is wheels in Commander?
Okay. You can consider something a wheel if it causes you to discard your hand and draw up to or more than the number of cards you discarded. Right? So, for example, a wheel would be something named after Wheel of Fortune, right? Wheel of Fortune, 2 and a red. Discard your hand. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. So, for example, right, something like Winds of Change could be considered a wheel, in my opinion. Winds of Change is 1 red. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck and then draws that many cards. Another famous one that a lot of people dislike, but is still a good one that's played, is Windfall. Windfall is each player discards their hand, draws equal to the maximum amount of cards in a player's hand, right? So let's say your opponent has 10 cards in hand and you have 2. Everybody will discard their hand and draw up to 10 cards. So,
Windfall is always great to me. Like when I think wheels, like I think of the 2 cards basically you said, Wheel of Fortune and Windfall.
Right.
And honestly, like I think they're great effects, right? Like Commander is a diverse format, and you need effective in different ways to get cards in your hand and maybe deal with other cards that are in your opponent's hand you're not aware of. And this is like, wheels are a great strategy. If you're not running in like black for hand disruption, wheels are a great way. Like, I don't know, sometimes you can get that sort of mental rate or body language in your opponent that, like, you know, they got that win condition and you're like, my eyes are on you. Here's my wheel. Get that out of here.
Well, right. For example, right, like if your opponent just tutored up their demonic consultation, right, and Thassa's Oracle, you could just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna Wheel of Fortune your stuff away." And honestly, it's a great disruption piece, especially in colors that normally would not have a counter spell or something immediately to deal with that. Right? Let's say you're playing mono red or you're playing red white. You know, how are you going to deal with a combo like that? You're going to make them discard their hand and draw 7 cards. And on top of that, you also kind of get yourself out of sticky situations.
Yeah, I mean, there might be times when your hand is just the absolute worst and you need that fresh 7. And I mean, sometimes maybe the hand you draw is the worst, but like, you know, you played to an out that you potentially had. But I think we've seen it over the last few months. There seems to be this big, I don't want to call it a digression, but the sort of big target. The wheels are the big bad of Commander right now. You know, it's with the primary focus. So we had the time of Flash, we had the time of Consultation, Thassa's Oracle, which I know is probably still ongoing somewhere, but now there's this whole stigma the last few months that wheels are the big bad. Are they really that bad, though?
I think they're only bad if you don't optimize your play. Wheels are very punishing when you're on the receiving side, or I guess on the receiving side. If your opponent wheels you and, you know, you've been holding cards in your hand, if you don't play counter spells or you don't play recursion, it really punishes you. So I think as your deck gets stronger, right? I guess that's the best way to put it. As your deck gets stronger and the power grows, wheels don't hurt you as much, right? Yeah, they make you like regret certain things. Hi, kitty. But we're leaving that in, by the way.
No, absolutely.
Including the part telling me about leaving it in. So no, but here's the thing, right? In a casual game, right? Let's say we're playing precons, right? And my opponent plays a Wheel of Fortune. It's gonna make me feel real sad, right? But do I think it's enough to make me feel like that they should be banned in the format? No way, right? I think wheels are just a thing that, you know, unfortunately, sometimes they cause a little bit of pain, but they're mostly beneficial to the format.
I agree. It's an extension of the format. It's another way to play, and I mean, it gives you an opportunity to try to get different outs. You know, Magic isn't just a battle cruiser esque format where the cards in your hand are always going to be there, and you get to play it one turn at a time to just assemble your win condition and win. Wheels force you to think outside the box for how you have to deal with the situation because your hand's gone. Then you get a fresh 7, and I think it. Not that it forces the mindset, but it creates the mindset that you need to be thinking about the different ways people are going to interact in your playstyle. And like you said, build in the interaction you need, that recursion. If you're playing green, Eternal Witness, pretty standard piece of recursion, right? Easy enough to get. Your hand gets wheeled away, but let's say you get wheeled into an Eternal Witness. Suddenly, maybe it's not so bad, and you just got like a better 7 than what you had.
And I think the idea is that a lot of people don't like the randomness that it puts behind the game, right? So when you get Wheel of Fortune, any strategy that you have goes out the window, and you may get wheeled into playing a non-game at a certain point, right? Even if you build up to like an optimized deck, you could still get wheeled into terrible cards, right? But I think it's just a part of the format, right? Like, at the same part where your opponent plays a removal spell to kill your commander, right? Like, it's just things that happen in the format, right? It doesn't feel good. Things aren't designed to feel good. But I mean, Magic's not a game of feel good. Magic's a game of, having this intense emotional roller coaster that you have to ride, right? Sometimes you peek off and you say, wow, look at this really cool storm combo I did. And other times you're like, man, I can't believe I just drew my 10th land in a row. I hope my opponent Wheel of Fortune so that I can get better cards.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's touch on that. The positive times when it's good to wheel, and sort of what I would say is maybe the positive wheel. I think all wheels are positive, and I'll blatantly state that. I will die on that hill. That's fine by me. I don't care if people hear. I think all wheels are great. It's a cool interaction. But the newest wheel we've seen, Wheel of Misfortune.
Right.
I think that is one of the best designed wheels we've seen.
I think it's definitely cool. You know what? I think it's something interactive and beneficial to the format, and I think it makes Commander games better. But I'm a vanilla guy. I like my meat and potatoes. I like my good old Wheel of Fortune.
I won't dispute. Wheel of Fortune is by and far the best ability to wheel because it's just simple and straightforward. I guess I should have clarified. I think Wheel of Misfortune is the best in terms of the design space that it had.
Right.
And that is for what it creates. But I definitely agree. Wheel of Fortune is like, by and true, that's the best wheel. I mean, it's 2 mana and it's done.
Well, I actually think, and I think when they designed Wheel of Fortune, and the reason why Wheel of Fortune is still good to this day, is because it's so simple, right? You're trading away your hand to draw 7 cards, but you're also risking things by letting your opponents also discard their hand and draw 7 cards, right? So the idea is that you have the sense of duality and risk that you take up by casting the card. You know how many times I've Wheel of Fortune into something and then my opponent counters my next spell? Or my opponent draws into their win con? Because I've had it before where my opponent draws Kiki combo off of my Wheel of Fortune.
I believe
Never feels good.
No, you feel bad after that happening because you're like, I did this for me, but like you benefited, and now I'm sad.
I think that when it comes down to it, the only wheel effect that I think is actually poor is probably Winds of Change. And the reason why is because if you're the active player and you have a Winds of Change in your hand, you could go turn 1 red source Winds of Change. And you're the only one with a land out, and if your opponents don't draw any lands, then they're just stuck.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that there's no additional card resources that go into it or risks to make turn 1 Winds of Change worth it.
I would agree with that, because I mean, basically, if you were, like you said, on the play, no one's going to have an interaction, albeit maybe they have, the force of will type of thing.
Right.
But if that's the case, then suddenly someone's just used one of the best counter spells and neglected another card in their hand. You've just stripped someone of 2 potentially amazing resources for 1 mana. Whereas, like, at least with Wheel of Fortune, like, you're investing 2 mana in. People have lands down. It's not just immediate in the game. But
and, I mean, let's be honest. If your opponent turn 1 Wheel of Fortunes because they get land, Soul Ring, another mana source, and Wheel of Fortune, they've already gotten so far ahead that I don't think the wheel matters.
I would agree with that, because that's just fast mana doing its thing, and that's a whole other.
Yeah, you could do a whole entire episode about how fast mana may or may not be healthy for the format. I'm not gonna spoil it. So.
No, but I think you bring up a good point in that, because there are times when someone just gets so far ahead, and I mean, in those instances when someone's so far ahead, I mean, I know the card's banned, but let's use Hull Breacher as an example for the brief amount of time it was legal, and Narset too, right? The effects that either limit the cards your opponents can draw per turn, or stealing away their draws and creating a mana advantage for you. In that essence, I don't think the wheels are really at fault there. I think that's an additional card that's pushing that effect, and then that just creates a negative connotation on the wheels themselves.
Look, here's the thing. We don't get the same talk about Kiki Jiki. We don't get the same talk about Demonic Consultation or Thassa's Oracle. 2-card combos exist in the format. You could play 2-card Monties all you want. And sorry, but your Wheel of Fortune Hull Breacher thing is going to be super hard to tutor up compared to something like, let's even talk about Avengers of Zendikar and Craterhoof Behemoth, right? These cards exist in the format. They're super strong. I think that Hull Breacher just got the axe because of the fact that my opponent is angry when they Wheel of Fortune and I flash in a Hull Breacher to counter their wheel. I don't even think it's because of the active player. I think it's because of the reactive play. But, I mean, that gets into a culture of people not playing counter spells or people not playing certain things, right? And it doesn't win on the spot. It makes things really irritating, right? We could talk about Narset wheels too, right? Like when you Narset and you wheel into a Narset, feels really good for the active player. It doesn't feel as good for the reactive player. But I mean, it's one of those things that like wheels might be an issue, but not because of wheels themselves, but because of the cards around it. And honestly, I don't think Hull Breacher was that bad to get banned. No, I think it makes other people feel bad, right? Same thing we talked about earlier with wheels. It makes your opponent feel bad, so that's why they banned it. But if they are going to do that, then why is Grand Arbiter legal in the format?
I would sympathize with that. Honestly, I think I'm in a weird cross. I'm kind of happy Hull Breacher's gone, but I do honestly believe that it was fine for the format. Because it promotes the idea of interaction. And that's what people forget. Interaction. That, like, Hull Breacher gets flashed in. Okay, respond to it before the wheel effect goes off. Hull Breacher only kicks in when the wheel effect goes off. If you kill it before the wheel effect resolves, what's it going to do? I mean, it's a simple red spell. It's not a giant body. It's not like it's a 5/5. The thing's at, it was a 2/2?
It was a 2/1?
Frick, gut shot.
I want to say. Here's the thing, right? It's not like, and I will bring it up again, it's not like Thassa's Oracle or Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation, where you get a trigger on the stack, and unless you're playing a Stifle type ability, you lose.
Yeah.
2-card combos exist in the format that are way stronger than, a Hull Breacher Wheel of Fortune. And I hate to say it, but you could still get Wheel of Fortune Hull Breachered and still whiff and lose the game.
Absolutely, because your 7 might just be that bad. That's the risk that you're taking. You might draw into 7 lands, and suddenly you have all this treasure, and whoop-de-doo. Your opponents are going to be running other draw effects, too. They'll be able to rebuild up their hand. You're stuck with basically nothing.
And, here's the thing. It's okay for certain... it's okay to have these cards that make people feel bad. It's okay to go through this, because you know what you're going to do? You're going to get that guy that sits there and goes, every time I see a Hull Breacher, I kill a Hull Breacher on sight. Or every time a Wheel of Fortune comes out or a wheel type ability happens, I want to keep my hand, so I'm countering it. Wheels promote table interaction, right? You get people that talk about whether or not they want a wheel to resolve. They talk about whether or not it's good for the table. They talk about, oh, geez, maybe we shouldn't let this wheel resolve because he might have a Hull Breacher in hand, right? It's wheels are good for Commander because they push the board state forward.
That, and I think what you just said, board state, communication. Commander is social and table talk. There are a lot of
Yep.
times when table talk just doesn't happen and people pass it through. But when you've got that tabletop going on, that's when you get some of the most memorable Commander games. Because you
Right.
might be looking at, like, I might be looking at my hand, I'm like, these 4 cards are pretty crap. I might actually be okay with this wheel. Someone else is like, but I've got everything in my win condition. Maybe I want to counter it. And then the talk discusses, is it worth having the wheel or is it not? How does it change the gameplay? What are we expecting? You get a whole other layer to the Commander game, and I think it just makes it that much more exciting.
And let's talk about banning wheel effects overall. It hurts the colors that really need them, right? So red needs wheel effects in it to be competitive. If you don't have wheel effects in red, you are cutting out so much of red's power.
Red is all about
Right.
impulse draw, and wheels are a direct example of that impulse on nature.
Right.
I don't care about this. I want my effects immediate and now.
Right. Well, think about stuff like Burning Inquiry, right?
Yeah.
Burning Inquiry is a great card where you you draw 3 cards and you discard. I think each player does it, right? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'd have to check, but
It doesn't matter. Whole entire point is that like there's all these ways that red can interact with the board and their wheel type abilities, and I think they have a home in the game. The game would not be the same without Wheel of Fortune. It would cut out so many by cutting wheels, we would cause so many more problems with players just running away with the game and not being able to affect the board state by having a draw spell.
yeah. I'd even extend that further and say we'd run into a more stagnant Commander environment. Because it would be such a place where there's only one type of color that really interacts with hands, with the light splash and blue because of Windfall. But let's assume all wheels are banned. Really, the only hand disruption color then is black.
Right, and think about all these discard decks that could run around and you couldn't refill.
Yeah.
Right,
And then
like you
you've got
can't
nothing.
refill in red. Right,
Red's shut out, your blues shut out of its things. You have nothing to come back from an empty hand at that point.
and think about how hard graveyard decks would be hit by this, right? Like, I mean, we don't see them played as much right now because there's a lot of like rest in peace hate and all this other stuff, but graveyard decks really depend on Wheel of Fortune sometimes. Sometimes
Absolutely.
they need to dump their hand in there.
Yeah, because it's got everything they need. I mean, maybe they're doing like a red-black with a few dredge cards in, like Steakweed, because that just fills the bin, adds stuff in, and they get the card back, continuing the cycle. If you're not able to mass dump your hand in to take effect of what's in your graveyard, like maybe trying to escape a Kroxa, or you're running Dreadhorde or Canister, something to that effect,
Right.
you're limiting what your deck can do. You're not able to take full advantage, and you're gimped. You've got nothing, more or less. You're at a big disadvantage.
And Magic has leaned so far into asymmetrical effects. Wheels are still one of the pillars of symmetrical effects that are fantastic in the community. Right? Like, and I think we need more symmetrical downsides and upsides. Right? So, for example, the white card that makes your opponent and you each draw 3 cards.
Secret Rendezvous. I think that's a great design
Yep.
card. That is like, let's make a deal. I'm going to draw 3, you draw 3. That's table talk. That's what we want.
That is promoted. That is a commander card. That is a
Absolutely.
commander card printed in a standard set. So.
I'll agree with that.
I mean, but overall, though, you know what? Like, there's room for these symmetrical cards, and as we keep going into this asymmetrical side, one of the biggest and best points of card design, or I guess for deck design and things of it, is to create an environment where you have symmetry, and you have to break this symmetry or these rules that you put upon yourself. Look at Stacks, right? Stacks exists because they put down pieces and they break the symmetry.
Yeah, Stacks is a great example.
Right. I think Morrow even talked about it. Sometimes when you have constraints upon yourself, creativity flourishes.
Absolutely, because that's when you're forced to really think outside what you would be. That kind of plays into the perception bit, right? You might perceive the wheel effects as being bad, but is it really all that bad? It's giving you a whole other opportunity and potential solutions that you might not have even think of. Like, let's put it this way. Your deck is a puzzle. You're never going to draw the same cards all the time in the exact same order. You're always going to get different things. So you have to use those pieces in the right way every time. So wheel effect is really delivering you more pieces, and you might find a whole new combo or interaction in your deck you didn't think of at all.
Yeah.
It's always
And
possible.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm still learning.
Yeah. I'm the same with my Corval deck. I find new little, not inconsistencies. That's not the right word, but I find new little interactions every time I play it. Because I'm like, there are times when I can deal with a wheel effect and it's beneficial to get me stuff. There are times when I need food chain and times when I don't. Like it's, you find all the little things, and it breaks you out to improve as a player.
And it's a testament to your deck building, right? Like the idea is that one of the biggest hurdles in Commander is building your deck to work in the worst of situations. And once you start doing that, heck, there's a whole other episode you could have about do nothing cards. You could just evaluate and say, okay, how do I get out of this situation? How do these cards help me? What is this supposed to do for me right now? Card may synergize, but it may do nothing when played.
Absolutely. And I would say in that vein, wheels are immediate effect kind of thing, which we love in Commander. Immediate effects and immediate payoff is one of the best things you can get. And honestly, I think that's what makes wheels so great in this format.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, when it comes down to it, we might be talking in circles here, spinning our wheels, as you could say. Yeah. I get bonus points for that, right? Check's in the mail.
Check's in the mail. You'll get it next week.
Sweet. I really think that Magic wouldn't be the same without wheels.
No, I would wholeheartedly agree. Wheels are needed. I think that's the bottom line. But
definitely.
Void, my friend, I want to thank you for coming on today and talking with me about wheels. This has been a very exciting discussion. I can't wait to have you back on our next discussions coming up in the next few weeks.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. I guess we'll wheel and deal. Until next time.
Alrighty. See you soon.